In the dim light of the 52nd floor office in the heart of Manhattan, Olivia Bennett sat pensively behind her gleaming ebony desk. Outside the window, New York's skyscrapers shimmered with lights, but her eyes, deep and sharp, seemed to see none of them. As a 35-year-old Black American woman, Olivia built Bennett Enterprises into a billion-dollar empire from scratch. Her reputation was shaped by multi-million-dollar deals, handshakes that secured hundreds of jobs, and inspiring speeches. But today, she felt trapped in her kingdom. The phone on the desk vibrated, breaking the silence. Ms. Bennett, the Japanese investors, are requesting an urgent meeting about the new contract. They just sent over additional terms, and her assistant Mia's voiceover to the speaker came. Olivia rubbed her temples, tension strung tight like a violin string. "Cancel everything this afternoon, Mia. I need to get out. Right now." Her voice was calm, but resolute, betraying no fatigue. Mia, used to her boss's sudden demands, hesitated. "Out, but there's a board meeting at 3. Olivia cut her off, rising to put on a navy blue blazer. "I don't care. Please find me a quiet place. Somewhere no one knows who I am. If you don't, I swear I'll lose my mind right in that boardroom." She left the office, leaving Mia frantically scrolling through her phone. 20 minutes later, Olivia's black Bentley pulled up to a narrow street in Harlem, where old red brick buildings pressed tightly beside small local shops. A faded wooden sign hung in front of a 2-story house, carved with the words "Full Moon Spa, Eastern Therapies." No neon lights, no flashy billboards. Just a hand-drawn lotus on the sign, so simple it was nearly invisible. Olivia frowned and looked at Mia through the rearview mirror. "Are you sure this is the place?" Mia nodded, still clutching her iPad. "I checked. It's very discreet. No social media, no photos. They have a highly rated massage therapist. His name is Ethan. Clients say he's special." Olivia didn't respond. She opened the door and stepped out. The cold October wind tousled her thick curls, carrying the scent of toasted bread from a nearby bakery. She adjusted her scarf, put on her sunglasses, and entered the spa. Inside, the space was strangely quiet. No overpowering essential oils, no fake meditation music. Just the soft glow of paper lanterns and a faint hint of lavender. The receptionist, a warm-faced, middle-aged woman, greeted her. "Good afternoon. Would you like a complete treatment or just a body massage?" Olivia removed her sunglasses and glanced around. "Full treatment. And I want your best. Ethan is available. He's our most requested therapist," the receptionist replied gently. Olivia nodded silently and was led to a small room. The warm orange glow from a candle on the wooden table gave the space a cozy feel. She removed her blazer, set it on a chair, removed her heels, and lay on the massage table, feeling the cool linen beneath her skin. The door creaked open. "Good afternoon, I'm Ethan. If you're ready, we can begin." The voice was deep, straightforward, unpretentious. Olivia turned her head, observing him in the dim light. Ethan Carter, a white American man, around 28, had short brown hair, calm gray-blue eyes, and a balanced frame that didn't flaunt itself. He wore a simple spa uniform, a white t-shirt and gray trousers, but something about him caught Olivia's attention. Maybe it was the way he stood, not too close or far, as if he had complete control of the space around him. Olivia said, "I'm in a bit of a rush," her voice still carrying the edge of a CEO. "Just do what you need to do." Ethan didn't reply. He nodded, washed his hands at the sink in the corner, and began. His hands touched her shoulders, firm but precise, as if he could sense every knot of tension in her body. As he moved down her back, Olivia felt a strange warmth spread, not from pain, but from care. For the first time in months, She felt her body being treated not like a machine, but like a person. Ethan said, "You're carrying a lot of stress evenly without judgment." Olivia opened her eyes, surprised that he spoke. "Who isn't stressed in this city?" she replied, half joking, half serious. Ethan didn't smile. He just continued his work. "Your body is saying more than you think. It needs rest." Olivia frowned, unaccustomed to being read like this. "Do you always talk to clients like that?" He replied only when they needed to hear it, eyes still focused on his hands. Olivia let out a soft chuckle, the sound echoing gently in the quiet room. "You're odd. Not curious about me not trying to impress. Most people ask what I do and how much I make." Ethan paused for a second, then resumed. "I don't work to be curious. I work to help you feel better." Olivia fell silent, unsure how to respond. In her world, people always wanted a deal, an introduction, an opportunity. But Ethan seemed to want nothing at all. When the massage ended, she put her blazer back on her body lighter, but her mind heavier. Before leaving the room, she turned to look at Ethan, who was drying his hands with a white towel. "How long have you been doing this?" she asked, her voice softer than usual. He replied long enough to know when silence was better meeting her gaze. Olivia smiled for the first time that day and walked out. At the reception desk she paid, but couldn't help asking, "That Ethan guy, does he have a family?" The receptionist smiled, slightly surprised. "No, he's single. Some say he's never been in love. Very private." Olivia nodded, stepped outside and felt the cold wind brush against her scarf again. She leaned against the car window, watching the people move through Harlem's streets. "Never been in love," she murmured, a faint smile playing on her lips. Something about Ethan Carter made her want to return not to control, but to understand. And for the first time in years, Olivia Bennett felt curious about a person, not a deal. The afternoon light was fading over the streets of Harlem, where the flow of people seemed never-ending. Olivia Bennett sat in her black Bentley, her eyes still fixed on the weathered wooden sign of Full Moon Spa, the place she had left less than an hour ago. In her mind, the image of Ethan Carter, his strong hands, calm gray-blue eyes, and steady voice kept replaying like a strange melody. She had never met anyone like him, a man seemingly untouched by the whirlwinds of fame and fortune that she knew all too well. "Mia," Olivia spoke, her voice low but sharp. "That spa. What's so special about it besides the worn-out exterior?" Scrolling through her iPad in the front seat. Mia looked up in the rearview mirror. "What do you mean, ma'am? I know it's discreet. Clients speak highly of it, especially Ethan. They say he has a way of making people forget everything, even if just for an hour." Olivia nodded slightly, her fingers toying with the diamond ring on her ring finger, a gift she bought herself after her first successful deal. "Forget everything," she murmured. "I need a little more forgetting." Despite Mia's surprised look, she ordered the driver to turn around and head back to the spa. "Ms. Bennett, you were just there." "Is something wrong?" Mia asked, concerned. Olivia didn't answer. She merely waved her hand. "I want another session. Now." Inside her, a strange feeling was stirring. Not the usual need for control, but curiosity, almost a longing to understand more about the man who had made her smile for the first time that day. Stepping back into the spa, Olivia found the space as quiet as before. The receptionist, Mrs. Grace, looked up with her familiar warm smile. "Ms. Bennett, what a surprise. Would you like another treatment?" Olivia removed her sunglasses, her eyes firm. "Full body. And I want Ethan, no one else." Grace nodded and checked her notebook. Luckily, Ethan had just finished with another client. "Please wait a moment while I prepare the room." Olivia nodded and sat on a fabric-covered chair in the corner, her eyes scanning the calligraphy paintings on the wall. One wooden plaque caught her attention. "Silence is where the soul finds itself." She frowned, feeling as if the words were speaking directly to her. The massage room was still warm, the candlelight flickering on the walls. Olivia removed her blazer, removed her shoes, and lay on the table feeling the cool linen against her skin. The door creaked open, and Ethan walked in, still wearing the same white and gray uniform. "Good afternoon, Ms. Bennett," he said, his voice unchanged, as if her return after just an hour was normal. Olivia turned her head to look at him. "Call me Olivia. Let's skip the formalities." Ethan nodded without responding and began washing his hands. Olivia closed her eyes, but her mind wouldn't stop spinning. His hands touched her shoulders again, and she felt that strange attentiveness, intense, but not rough, precise, yet complete of care. As he moved down her back, the knots of tension from that morning began to unravel. But this time, she didn't want silence. "How long have you been doing this, Ethan?" she asked, her voice light but intentional. "Long enough to know what the body needs," he replied without looking up. Olivia let out a soft chuckle, echoing in the quiet room. "Do you answer everyone like that, or just the ones who come back an hour later?" Ethan paused for a second, then continued. "Only the ones who ask." Olivia opened her eyes, looking at him through the dim light. "So what is my body saying?" Ethan moved down to her arm, his fingers gliding over tense muscles. "It says you're running either from something or toward something. I'm not sure which." Olivia stiffened, surprised at how sharp his response was. In her world, no one dared speak to her like that, or read her without fearing the consequences. "You're pretty bold," she said, half joking, half serious. "I'm not paying for a psychological analysis." "No analysis," Ethan replied, voice steady, just observation. "You don't have to respond if you don't want to." Olivia fell silent, feeling both irritated and intrigued. He wasn't trying to impress her, wasn't trying to please, and that unsettled her. She decided to change tactics. "Have you ever thought about doing something bigger? I mean, you're talented. Why stay here in a small spa in Harlem?" Ethan moved down to her legs, his hands gentle but firm. "Bigger isn't always better. I like it here. It's real." Olivia frowned, dissatisfied with the answer. "Real? What do you mean?" "Working with people like me. Paying to forget a bad day." Ethan paused, then looked directly at her for the first time. His gray-blue eyes didn't waver. "Real means no one here pretends to be something they're not." "What about you, Olivia? Are you real with yourself?" His question hit like an invisible punch. Olivia opened her mouth, but no words came out. At that moment, she felt exposed, not physically, but all the layers she'd built over the years. The boardroom queen, the woman who never lost the CEO, who never showed weakness. She closed her eyes and took a deep breath. "You don't know me, Ethan. Don't pretend like you do." "I'm not pretending," he said, returning to his work. "But the body doesn't lie. And yours is crying out." Olivia felt a jolt through her, not from pain, but from the raw truth in his words. She wanted to argue and regain control, but something in Ethan's voice, free of judgment and ego, kept her silent. The massage ended in quiet. Olivia put her blazer back on her body lighter, but her mind tangled. She looked at Ethan drying his hands with a white towel and felt a strange impulse. "Do you ever go out? I mean, outside of this job. Dinner meeting. Someone." Ethan looked at her, a faint smile crossing his lips, though his gaze remained calm. "Not often. I prefer quiet. Olivia nodded and walked out of the room, but a small flame had been lit inside her. At the reception desk, Mrs. Grace asked, "Were you satisfied with today's session?" Olivia smiled for the first time, genuinely relaxed. "Very satisfied. I'll be back." As she stepped into the car, she leaned against the window, watching Harlem's streetlights flicker. Ethan Carter was not just a massage therapist. He was a puzzle, and for the first time in her life, Olivia Bennett wanted to solve a person, not a deal. Evening in Manhattan lay beneath a thin layer of mist, casting a haze over the streetlights. Olivia Bennett sat in her penthouse, gazing down at the stream of traffic glowing like a river of light. But her mind wasn't there. It was at Full Moon Spa, where Ethan Carter, with his steady hands and unwavering gaze, had left her feeling both challenged and drawn in. His question, "Are you honest with yourself?" still echoed in her head like a small scratch that wouldn't stop aching. She sipped red wine, the glass shimmering under the chandelier. She wasn't used to rejection, and she didn't intend to let Ethan Carter be the first man to succeed in doing so. The next morning, before the sun had risen, Olivia was already seated in her Bentley, instructing the driver to head straight to Harlem. Mia, her assistant, sat in the front seat, clutching her iPad worriedly. "Ms. Bennett, are you sure you went to that spa twice yesterday? If you need to relax, I could book a resort in the Hamptons." Olivia cut her off, eyes sharp as a blade. "I don't need the Hamptons. I need to go back to the spa. And don't ask again." Mia nodded silent, though her eyes betrayed a growing curiosity. When the car stopped in front of Full Moon Spa, the sky was still dim. The wooden sign with the hand-painted lotus stood quietly in the early morning light. Olivia stepped inside. No sunglasses. No attempt to hide her identity. Mrs. Grace, the receptionist, looked up from the front desk, startled. "Ms. Bennett, this early? Would you like a treatment?" Olivia smiled, though there was a determined edge to it. "Full body. And I want Ethan, right now." Grace checked the appointment book, hesitating. "Ethan hasn't arrived yet, ma'am. He usually starts at 8. But I can call Olivia." Raised her hand, cutting her off. "I'll wait." She sat on the fabric-covered chair in the corner, her eyes again drifting to the calligraphy painting on the wall. Silence is where the soul finds itself. Now the phrase seemed to mock her. Olivia wasn't used to waiting. She was the one people waited for. But today, she was willing to break her own rules to face the man who had kept her awake all night. 1 hour passed. Then 2. Finally, the spa's front door opened, and Ethan walked in, wearing a simple gray coat, his brown hair tousled slightly by the wind. He stopped when he saw Olivia, his gray-blue eyes showing a flicker of surprise, quickly returning to their usual calm. "Ms. Bennett," he said evenly, "you're early." "Call me Olivia," she replied, standing, eyes locked on his. "We need to talk." Ethan nodded, signaling to Mrs. Grace. "Prepare room 3." Olivia followed him into the familiar massage room, the candlelight flickering across the walls. She took off her blazer, but instead of lying on the table, she stood facing Ethan. "I don't need a massage today. I want you to have dinner with me. Tonight. Just the 2 of us." Ethan paused, towel still in his hands. "I don't go to dinner with clients, Olivia." His voice was calm, but firm. Olivia smiled and stepped closer, lowering her voice. "I'm not your typical client, Ethan. You know that one dinner, no strings, no pressure, just getting to know each other." Ethan shook his head, turning back to wash his hands. "I'm sorry, but the answer is no." Olivia felt heat rise in her face. She wasn't used to being turned down, especially not by a massage therapist in Harlem. "Why?" she asked, voice sharper. You don't like me. Or don't you like being seen next to someone like me? Ethan turned his gaze steady. It's not that. I have boundaries. My work is here, not out there. Olivia stepped closer now, just an arm's length away. Boundaries. Ethan, you work in a small spa, making pocket money by the hour. I'm inviting you to a restaurant where people wait months for a table. Aren't you even curious? Ethan looked at her, a faint smile crossing his lips. Curiosity isn't a good enough reason to break my principles. Olivia laughed, but the sound held a bitter note. Principles, or pride. You think you're better than me, don't you? Ethan shook his head. I'm not better than anyone. I know who I want to be. Olivia felt anger rise, but also strangely admiration. She pulled a white envelope from her handbag and slowly opened it, revealing a check. $1 million, she said, voice cold as steel. For one night with me. There are no strings and no contact after just one night. The room fell into silence. Ethan looked at the check, then at her. Are you serious? Olivia nodded, pushing the envelope toward him. Completely serious. This money could change your life. A new apartment, a better job, anything you want. Ethan didn't touch the envelope. He walked to the massage table, resting his hand on the white towel. Can I be bought? Olivia narrowed her eyes, feeling challenged. Everyone has a price, Ethan. Don't pretend you're the exception. She pulled out a pen and scribbled a new figure on the check. 5 million. Enough for you to never work another day. Enough for you to live the life you want. Ethan looked at the check, then back at her, his gaze unwavering. I've been living the life I want, and it doesn't include selling myself. Olivia felt like she'd been slapped. She stepped forward, pointing at him. You're turning down $5 million for what? For this spa. For so-called principles. Ethan stood tall, his voice low but firm. Because I don't want to wake up tomorrow and feel like I lost who I am. Can you understand that, Olivia? She opened her mouth, but no words came out. In that moment, she saw something rare: integrity. Not the kind preached in conferences, but the kind lived and breathed standing right before her. Olivia clutched the envelope tighter, feeling its weight in her hand. She wanted to scream to force him to accept it, but something in Ethan's eyes stopped her. You'll regret this, she said, her voice trembling slightly. No one turns me down without paying for it. Ethan smiled, not mockingly, but with quiet sadness. Price is something you understand, Olivia, but it's not what I live for. Olivia turned and left the room, the envelope still in her grip. At the front desk, Mrs. Grace looked at her with concern. Is everything all right, Ms. Bennett? Olivia didn't answer. She pushed open the door and stepped into the cold morning air. She threw the envelope onto the seat in the car and leaned her head against the window. Ethan Carter hadn't just refused her. He had forced her to face a painful truth. Money, the most potent weapon she had, might not be able to buy everything. The sky over New York was painted a weary shade of gray as Olivia Bennett sat in her penthouse, her eyes lost in the glittering skyline. The glass of red wine on the table remained untouched, its shimmering liquid glowing like rubies beneath the crystal chandelier. But Olivia didn't reach for it. Her mind was trapped at Full Moon Spa, where Ethan Carter had refused her $5 million offer with a firmness that left her both infuriated and unsettled. His words, I don't want to wake up tomorrow, feeling like I've lost myself, echoed in her head, like a pebble dropped into a still lake, sending out endless ripples. She stood and walked over to the large mirror on the living room wall. In the soft lighting, she saw herself a Black American woman, with voluminous curly hair, sharp eyes, and the confident posture of a powerful CEO. But tonight, she didn't see the queen of the boardroom. She saw a girl from the Harlem projects who once dreamed of a life more meaningful than cold business deals. She touched the mirror, her fingers brushing across her reflection. Who am I? She whispered, her voice trembling. For the first time in years, the question had no clear answer. She returned to the sofa, sat down, and closed her eyes. Ethan's image surfaced, not his strong hands or gray-blue eyes, but that sad smile when he spoke about not wanting to lose himself. Olivia had met hundreds of people in the business world, CEOs with fake smiles, investors always looking to exploit, and partners ready to betray each other for a contract. But Ethan was different. He wanted nothing from her, no fame, money, or attention. And that left her feeling empty, as if everything she had built, power, wealth, reputation, suddenly meant nothing. Olivia opened her eyes, grabbed her phone, and called Mia, despite it being nearly midnight. Mia, please find out everything about Ethan Carter, where he lives, his family, his past. I want to know why he's like this. Mia, her voice groggy, hesitated. Ms. Bennett, it's late. Are you sure? I mean, he's just a massage therapist? Olivia cut her off, her voice sharp as a blade. He's not just a massage therapist. Do it, Mia. I want the information before morning. She hung up, her heart pounding. She wasn't sure what she was searching for, a weakness in Ethan, or an explanation for his unshakable conviction. She stepped onto the balcony, letting the October wind sweep through her silk robe. Looking down at the cars below, she thought of her childhood in Harlem, where her mother, a janitor, once told her that money can't buy self-respect. Olivia had laughed at that, thinking her mother didn't understand how the real world worked. She had spent her entire life proving the opposite, that money could buy everything: contracts, fame, even respect. But Ethan had made her doubt. If money couldn't buy him, then what could? And why did she want to buy him so badly? She returned inside, sat at her desk, and opened her laptop. She typed "full moon spa" into the search bar, but no meaningful results came up. No Instagram, no Yelp, not even a basic website. Just a few short reviews on local forums, praising Ethan, the man with magic hands. She frowned, her curiosity tinged with frustration. Everything left a digital footprint in her world: social media accounts, LinkedIn profiles, and old news articles. But Ethan seemed to exist only within the walls of that spa. Who was he? And why did he choose to live this way? She closed the laptop, stood up, and walked to the window. Memories rushed in. She remembered the days when she and her mother sat on the steps of their cramped apartment, eating grilled cheese sandwiches and dreaming of a better future. "You don't need to be rich, Liv," her mother once said. "You need to live true to your heart." Olivia had brushed off that advice, dismissing it as naive idealism. But now, standing in a multi-million-dollar penthouse, she wondered if she was truly living or just playing a role. She thought about Ethan, about how he turned down $5 million without hesitation. She had called it arrogance, but deep down, she knew it was something she lacked: the freedom to say no without fear of loss. Every decision revolved around profit, reputation, or power in her world. But Ethan seemed to live by a different code she didn't understand, but yearned to explore. She felt a creeping anger, not toward Ethan, but toward herself. She had used money to control everything: partners, friends. And now, when money no longer worked, she felt powerless. Olivia returned to the sofa and picked up the wine glass, but didn't drink. She thought of the first time she signed a major contract, the triumph of proving herself to the skeptical white investors in the boardroom. She had told herself that money was power, that it was freedom. But Ethan had shown her that true power might lie in the ability to refuse, in the choice to live with integrity. She set the glass down, her chest heavy. "What am I doing?" she whispered. "Why does he matter so much?" Her phone buzzed, a message from Mia. "Ms. Bennett, I found a little information about Ethan Carter. Not much, but he lives in a small apartment near the spa. No social media, no public records. I'll dig deeper in the morning." Olivia read the message, but didn't reply. She wasn't sure if she wanted more information or just wanted to return to the spa, look Ethan in the eyes and ask him plainly, "Who are you, and why do you make me feel like I'm losing control?" She stood up and stepped onto the balcony again. The cold wind made her shiver, but she didn't retreat. Looking down at the city, she felt a slight shift inside. Ethan Carter wasn't just a puzzle to solve. He was a mirror forcing her to confront the questions she had avoided for years. And though she didn't want to admit it, she knew she would return to Full Moon Spa, not to control him, but to understand him, and perhaps to understand herself. The early morning air in Harlem carried a refreshing breeze, but Olivia Bennett didn't feel its comfort as she stepped out of her Bentley in front of Full Moon Spa. Her gaze was icy, and in her hand she gripped a slim folder Mia, her assistant, had prepared overnight. Since Ethan Carter rejected her $5 million offer, Olivia couldn't stop thinking about him, not just because of his unshakable resolve, but because of the questions he had stirred in her about herself. But after reading through Mia's preliminary report last night, she realized Ethan wasn't as simple as he seemed. He was a puzzle. Today, she was determined to solve it. She pushed open the spa's door, the soft chime of wind bells, announcing her arrival. Mrs. Grace, the receptionist, looked up with her usual warm smile, which quickly turned to concern at Olivia's stern expression. "Ms. Bennett, this early? Would you like a treatment?" Olivia shook her head, her voice firm. "No. I need to speak with Ethan, and I need to meet the owner of this spa, right now." Grace hesitated, glancing around as if searching for a delay. "Mr. Samuel isn't in yet, ma'am. As for Ethan, I can call him." Olivia folded her arms, eyes locked on Grace. "Call both. I'll wait." She sat on the fabric-covered chair in the corner, the folder resting on her lap. Mia's report contained only a few lines. Ethan Carter, 28, rents a small apartment near the spa and has no social media or public records. However, one strange detail caught Olivia's attention 3 years ago. Ethan's name appeared in a police file linked to a financial investigation, though the information was sealed. She didn't know how he was connected, but the mystery only fueled her determination to dig deeper. The spa door opened, and Ethan stepped in, wearing a gray coat and jeans, his brown hair slightly tousled by the morning wind. He stopped when he saw Olivia, the gray blue in his eyes flickering with surprise before returning to calm. "Olivia," he said evenly. "You're early again." Olivia stood, eyes locked on his. "We need to talk, Ethan. And this time I want the truth." Before Ethan could respond, an older man entered from the back. He appeared to be around 60, with salt and pepper hair and a neat build, but his presence carried quiet authority. "Ms. Bennett, I'm Samuel Reed, the spa's owner," he said, his voice deep and cautious. Olivia narrowed her eyes, noting that the surname Reed matched Mia's report's details. She looked from Samuel to Ethan, feeling like she had just touched an essential puzzle piece. "Mr. Reed," she said sharply. "Good. I need both of you to answer a few questions." Samuel motioned for Mrs. Grace to step away from the desk, then invited Olivia into a small room at the back of the spa, where an old wooden table and a few chairs stood. Ethan followed silently, his gaze fixed on Olivia. When all three were seated, Olivia laid the folder on the table and opened it. "Ethan Carter," she began, her voice as cold as any boardroom. 3 years ago, you appeared in a financial investigation. Then you vanished. No records, no traces, and now you're working as a massage therapist in a small spa. Are you expecting me to believe that's just a coincidence?" Ethan glanced at the folder, then at her, his gaze unwavering. "You investigated me," he said, not as a question, but a fact. Olivia nodded, unapologetic. I don't like being turned down without understanding why. And I don't believe you're just a massage therapist." Samuel sighed, about to speak, but Ethan raised his hand to stop him. "I'll speak, Uncle Samuel." Olivia stiffened. "Uncle Samuel, are you related?" Samuel nodded, his eyes clouded with a quiet sadness. "Ethan is my nephew. But the story isn't as simple as you think, Ms. Bennett." Olivia folded her arms, glancing between Samuel and Ethan. "Then tell it. I've got all day." Ethan took a deep breath, glancing at Samuel as if seeking permission, then began. "I wasn't Ethan Carter 3 years ago as you know me now. I lived a different life, but I walked away from it, and I don't want to go back." Olivia frowned, her heart beating faster. "A different life? What do you mean? Were you a criminal? Are you running from the law?" Ethan shook his head, a sad smile tugging at his lips. "No, I used to be homeless, Olivia. No money, nowhere to go. Uncle Samuel found me and gave me a job, a roof. That's all you need to know." Olivia laughed, though it carried a bitter edge. "Homeless. Do you expect me to believe that someone who speaks like you and has eyes like yours lived on the street?" Samuel spoke up, his voice deep and resolute. "It's true, Ms. Bennett. I found Ethan in an alley behind my restaurant. He was cold hungry, but he refused free food. He insisted on washing dishes in exchange for a meal. I knew right then he wasn't ordinary." Olivia looked from Samuel to Ethan, feeling pulled into a story far beyond what she had imagined. "Then why?" she asked, her voice lowering. "Why did you leave your old life? Who were you before this?" Ethan remained silent for a moment, eyes on the table. "I had everything. Olivia, money, fame, family. But I lost something more important, and I didn't want to live in that world anymore." A chill ran down Olivia's spine. "What did you lose?" she asked softly. Ethan looked at her, then his eyes no longer calm, but filled with pain. "My brother, Nathan, he took his own life because of the pressure from our family, from things I didn't stop in time." The room fell into stunned silence. Olivia opened her mouth, but no words came out. Looking at Ethan, she saw his hands clenched tightly on the table, knuckles white. Samuel placed a gentle hand on Ethan's shoulder. "That's enough, Ethan. She doesn't need to know everything." But Olivia shook her head, her voice trembling. "No, I want to know. You said your family had money and fame. What family? And why did you give all of it up to live like this?" Ethan inhaled deeply, looked at Samuel, then turned back to Olivia. "The Reed family. Reed Global. I'm sure you've heard the name." Olivia felt the blood drain from her face. Reed Global was one of the world's largest conglomerates, spanning real estate to tech worth billions. She stared at Ethan, disbelief washing over her. You're the heir to Reed Global, and you chose to be a massage therapist in Harlem." Ethan nodded, his voice low but firm. "I didn't choose money, Olivia. I decided to live. Uncle Samuel taught me that hands can heal, not just destroy. That's why I'm here." Olivia looked from Samuel to Ethan, feeling as if the ground beneath her feet had begun to tremble. She stood, the folder falling onto the table. "You're lying. No one walks away from billions to live like this. No one." Samuel stood as well, his gaze steady. "You may not believe it, Ms. Bennett, but it's true. Ethan lost everything. Not money, but his family, himself. You can investigate all you want, but won't find anything more than what you've just heard." Olivia looked at Ethan, still seated, his eyes unwavering. She wanted to scream, to force him to admit it was all an act. But deep down, she knew he wasn't lying. The pain in his eyes was real. She turned and walked out of the room without another word. At the front desk, Mrs. Grace looked at her with concern, but Olivia didn't stop. She stepped into her car and leaned her head against the window, her chest heavy. Ethan Carter was not just a massage therapist. He was an heir who had left an empire to live in the shadows. And for the first time, Olivia Bennett felt she was no longer in control, but instead caught in a story far greater than herself. Morning light poured through the windows of the 52nd floor office at Bennett Enterprises, casting a soft glow across the polished ebony desk where Olivia Bennett was flipping through contract documents. But her mind wasn't there. It was still stuck at Full Moon Spa, where Ethan Carter, the heir to Reed Global, once homeless, now a massage therapist, had forced her to confront profound questions about herself. His revelations about his brother Nathan, the Reed family, and why he had walked away from a billion-dollar empire still echoed within her, tangled between admiration and confusion. She wanted to return to the spa to face Ethan again. But an unexpected crisis pulled her back into the business world. The phone on her desk buzzed. Mia's voice, her assistant, came through the speaker. "Ms. Bennett, we have a significant problem. The interpreter for the meeting with the Japanese investors just canceled. He's seriously ill, and all the other agencies are booked weekend schedules." Olivia rubbed her temples, the tension strung taut like a violin string. This meeting was the key to expanding Bennett Enterprises into the Asian market, with a $20 million contract on the line. Without an interpreter, she couldn't effectively communicate with the investors from Tokyo, who were notoriously exacting about language and culture. "You've tried everyone." "Mia," Olivia asked, her voice sharp but restrained. "Yes, ma'am. I called the top 3 agencies. No one is available. We have only 4 hours until they arrive." Olivia closed her eyes, inhaling deeply. Then a thought struck her. Ethan. She remembered Samuel Reed, Ethan's uncle, once mentioned that Ethan knew more than your average spa employee. And in Mia's report, there was a small detail: Ethan spoke Japanese. Where he learned it was unclear, but it was her only shot right now. "Call Full Moon Spa." Olivia ordered, already reaching for her blazer. "Tell them I need Ethan Carter immediately, and prep the car. I'm going there myself." Mia hesitated. "Ms. Bennett, you mean the massage guy? But he's not a professional interpreter." "Do it, Mia. Now." Olivia walked out of her office, her heart pounding. She didn't know if Ethan would agree, but she was willing to face his rejection again. The Bentley pulled up before Full Moon Spa less than 20 minutes later. Olivia stepped inside the familiar, quiet space. Mrs. Grace, the receptionist, looked up surprised. "Ms. Bennett again." "Ethan's with a client, but I need him." "It's urgent," Olivia said, raising her hand. Grace nodded quickly and went to fetch Ethan. Olivia stood at the reception desk, her fingers interlaced tightly, a swirl of determination and anxiety rising inside her. She didn't just need Ethan for the language. She wanted to see him, to understand him, if only for a moment. Ethan emerged from the hallway, still in his spa uniform, white and gray, his brown hair slightly tousled. His gray-blue eyes locked onto Olivia, not surprised, but cautious. "Olivia," he said steadily. "Again." "What's so urgent? You're here this early." Olivia stepped closer, her voice low but firm. "I need your help, Ethan. My company is meeting with Japanese investors. The interpreter canceled. And I know you speak Japanese. I need you to interpret just for one afternoon." Ethan folded his arms, his gaze unmoving. "I'm not an interpreter, Olivia. You know that." Olivia felt a surge of frustration rising, but held it back. "I don't need a certified interpreter. I need someone who understands culture and communication. And you can do it." Ethan shook his head and turned away. "I give massages, Olivia. Do not negotiate deals." Olivia followed, placing her hand on his arm and stopping him. "Ethan, please. This isn't just a contract. It's the future of my company. Hundreds of employees depend on this. I don't beg anyone, but I'm begging you." Ethan looked at her, his eyes softening slightly, though still resolute. "Why me? You have money, connections. Surely there's someone else." Olivia released his arm, her voice trembling. "Because I trust you. I don't know why, but I do." The air between them felt still. Ethan stared at her for a long moment, then exhaled. "Just this once," he said quietly. "And not for money." Olivia nodded, relief and curiosity washing over her. "Thank you. I won't forget this." Ethan didn't reply. He turned to Mrs. Grace and told her he'd be gone for a few hours. Olivia watched him, feeling a subtle shift inside her. Ethan wasn't just a puzzle anymore. He was someone she was beginning to respect. 4 hours later, in the elegant boardroom of Bennett Enterprises, Olivia stood before 3 Japanese investors, Mr. Hiroshi Tanaka and 2 associates, all dressed in sleek black suits. Ethan stood beside her wearing a simple gray suit Mia had rushed to prepare. He looked different, not like a humble massage therapist, but a poised man standing tall, eyes sharp. Olivia introduced him briefly. "This is Ethan Carter, our interpreter for today." The meeting began. Olivia presented the plan for expansion into the Asian market, but she quickly noticed the difference Ethan made. He didn't just translate her words, he carefully selected culturally appropriate phrases and adjusted her tone. When Mr. Tanaka asked a technical question about profit margins, Ethan responded fluently, adding details Olivia hadn't even considered. "They're concerned about corporate social responsibility," Ethan whispered to her after a long inquiry. "That matters as much to them as profitability." Olivia nodded and improvised. "Tell them Bennett Enterprises is committed to building a sustainable program, and we want to partner with them to ensure it aligns with Asian cultural values." Ethan translated, and she saw Mr. Tanaka smile and nod in approval. The meeting lasted 3 hours. When it ended, Mr. Tanaka shook Olivia's hand, speaking through Ethan. "We are very impressed. We will respond in 48 hours, but everything looks promising." Olivia sank into her chair as the investors left, a mix of relief and wonder. She looked at Ethan, who was taking off his jacket, his expression again calm. "You were incredible," she said sincerely. "You didn't just translate. You negotiated. You read them and adapted everything. How did you do that?" Ethan shrugged, avoiding her gaze. "Just an old experience." "Old experience." Olivia stood, stepping closer. "Ethan, don't lie. You were heir to Reed Global. You know how to work with people like them. Why hide that?" Ethan looked at her, his eyes now conflicted. "I'm not hiding. I don't want to be that person anymore. Today, I did it for you, not for me." Olivia felt her heart pound. "For me." Why? Ethan was silent for a moment, then replied in a low voice. "Because you asked. And because I saw someone not just acting like a CEO. I saw someone searching for something real." Olivia opened her mouth, but no words came. She watched as Ethan turned, preparing to leave the room. "Ethan," she called softly. "Thank you. Truly." He paused, smiling faintly. "Don't get used to this, Olivia." Then he walked out, leaving her with a $20 million deal and a new, unfamiliar feeling. Not triumph, but connection. The golden glow of sunset bathed Manhattan's towering skyline, but inside the 52nd floor boardroom of Bennett Enterprises, the air remained heavy after the successful meeting with the Japanese investors. Olivia Bennett sat in her leather chair, staring out the window, her mind still spinning from what had just happened. Ethan Carter, the man she once thought was a humble massage therapist, had transformed into a brilliant interpreter, a sharp negotiator rescuing her $20 million deal. But what she couldn't stop thinking about wasn't just his skills. It was his eyes. Not the confident ones from the boardroom, but the somber gaze when he spoke of never wanting to return to his old self. Olivia sensed a deeper story behind that refusal and was determined to uncover it. Ethan stood near the exit, his suit jacket off, revealing a crisp white shirt. He was preparing to leave when Olivia spoke up. "Ethan, wait." Her voice was soft but firm. He turned gray-blue eyes cautious. "What do you want, Olivia?" He asked, his tone even but not cold. She stood walking toward him, her gaze locked on his. "The truth. You said you didn't want to be that person anymore. The heir to Reed Global. Why? What happened with your brother Nathan? And don't tell me it was just family pressure." Ethan stiffened, a flicker of pain crossing his face before he masked it again. "You don't need to know everything, Olivia. Some things are better left untouched." She stepped closer, her voice low but steady. "No, Ethan. I saw you today, how you negotiated, how you read people. You're not just a massage therapist. And I don't believe you gave it all up to live authentically. Tell me. I deserve to know." Ethan looked at her momentarily, as if deciding whether to let her in. Finally, he exhaled and sank into one of the boardroom chairs, gesturing for her to sit across from him. "All right," he said, voice deep. "But you have to promise not to see me differently after this." Olivia nodded, heart pounding. "I promise." Ethan looked down at his hands, his knuckles white from how tightly he clenched them. "I used to be Ethan Reed, heir to Reed Global. My father, Richard Reed, built the conglomerate from the ground up, and I was being groomed to take over. I had an MBA from Harvard by 25 and worked in London, Tokyo, and New York. I was the perfect son, the ideal successor." He paused, his voice trembling slightly. "But Nathan, my younger brother, he was different. Sensitive, less ambitious. He wanted to be an artist. He wanted to paint, live a simple life, but my father wouldn't accept that." Olivia leaned forward, her eyes intense. "What did your father do?" Ethan inhaled deeply, his gaze fixed on the floor. "Richard wanted Nathan to be like me, a businessman, a leader. But when Nathan refused, he forced him into Reed Global's dealings. Deals that weren't clean. Political bribes, inflated contracts, labor exploitation. Nathan knew, and he hated it. He started asking questions, challenging my father, and threatening to expose everything." Olivia felt a chill run down her spine. "And then what happened?" Ethan looked up, his eyes filled with raw pain. 3 years ago, Nathan was assigned to a project in Bangkok, a $50 million construction contract. I knew the deal was rigged, and so did he. He told me he wanted to shut it down, but our father forbade it. I flew to Bangkok to confront Nathan, to push him to stand up against our father. We fought. I called him a coward. I told him he wasn't strong enough to do the right thing." Ethan's voice cracked. He bowed his head, covering his face with his hands. Olivia felt her heartache. And then, he took a shaky breath. The next day, they found Nathan in a hotel room. He'd taken his own life. He left a letter saying he couldn't handle the pressure from our father, everything. He said he felt like there was no way out. Ethan's eyes shut tightly. His final line to me was, "Ethan, I want you to be free, but I can't be." Olivia covered her mouth, eyes blurring with tears. "Ethan, that's not your fault." He shook his head, his voice raw. "It was my fault, Olivia. I pushed him too hard. I knew he was struggling and still pressured him, thinking I was doing the right thing. I was wrong. And I lost my brother." She reached out and placed a hand on his, but he pulled away like he didn't believe he deserved comfort. After Nathan died, Ethan continued saying that I couldn't look at my father without seeing him. I couldn't sign a contract without considering what Reed Global had done. I couldn't live in that world anymore. So I walked away. No money, no title, just a few documents and a decision to disappear. Uncle Samuel found me in Harlem, living in an alley, and gave me a new chance. He taught me that hands can heal, not just destroy. Olivia sat in silence, trying to process what she'd just heard. She looked at Ethan, seeing not weakness, but someone smaller, more wounded, yet stronger in a strange, quiet way. "Why don't you go back?" she asked gently. "You could change Reed Global, make it better." Ethan gave a sad smile. "You don't know my father, Olivia. Richard Reed doesn't forgive. He declared me missing, not to find me, but to erase me. Going back would mean facing him, and I'm not strong enough." Olivia stood, stepping closer, her eyes fierce with conviction. "You're stronger than you think, Ethan. Today in that boardroom I saw it. You didn't just save my deal. You showed me a man who can stand for what's right, no matter the cost." Ethan looked up at her, his eyes softening. "You don't understand, Olivia. If I return to that world, I might lose who I am again. And I don't want you to see that version of me." She placed her hand on his shoulder. This time he didn't pull away. "I don't care who you were, Ethan. I care about who you are now. And I see someone worth trusting." Ethan looked at her, torn between pain and hope. "Are you sure?" he asked quietly. Olivia smiled genuinely for the first time. "I'm sure, but I want you to promise me one thing. Don't run anymore. Not from me." Ethan didn't answer, but his eyes said everything. He rose slowly and walked out of the boardroom, leaving Olivia with a strange new feeling, not triumph, but a profound connection. She turned back to the window. The sun had dipped below the skyline. Ethan Carter wasn't just a runaway heir. He was a man carrying deep scars. And for the first time, Olivia felt an instinct to protect him the way he had quietly protected her in that boardroom today. Night fell over Manhattan, and the neon lights shimmered like scattered stars fallen to the earth. Olivia Bennett stood on the balcony of her penthouse, a glass of red wine in hand, but she didn't drink. Under the gentle glow of the chandelier behind her, she felt an unfamiliar kind of stillness. Not the silence of loneliness, but the quiet of emotions slowly awakening. Today in the boardroom of Bennett Enterprises, Ethan Carter had opened his heart to her, sharing the tragic story of his brother Nathan and why he had abandoned the empire of Reed Global. But what haunted her most wasn't just the tale, it was his eyes, a mixture of pain and resilience, when he said he was afraid of becoming the man he once was. Leaning against the railing, letting the October wind sweep through her silk robe, Olivia recalled the moment she touched Ethan's shoulder, how he trembled, but didn't pull away. For the first time, she didn't feel like a powerful CEO. She felt like a woman who wanted to understand and protect a man carrying deep scars. But she was afraid too, afraid that this connection, this unnamed closeness, would make her lose control, the thing she'd clung to for survival in the ruthless business world. She turned inside, set the wine down, and picked up her phone. A message from Mia blinked on the screen. "Ms. Bennett, the Japanese investors just confirmed the deal. They were very impressed with Ethan. Do you want me to arrange anything next?" Olivia smiled faintly, though her eyes grew distant. Ethan hadn't just saved her contract. He had saved her from a loneliness she didn't realize she carried. She replied, "Good. We are meeting tomorrow to prepare to sign." Then she looked at the clock. 9 p.m. It was too late to go to Full Moon Spa, but she couldn't wait any longer. Throwing on her blazer, she ordered her driver to take her to Harlem. The lights were off when the Bentley stopped outside the spa, but she saw a familiar silhouette through the glass. Ethan was wiping down the front desk sleeves, rolled up the soft glow of a street lamp, casting gold across his brown hair. Olivia knocked her heart pounding. Ethan looked up, startled, then walked over and opened the door. "Olivia?" he asked, surprised. "It's late. Is something wrong?" She stepped inside, surrounded by the spa's familiar stillness. "I need to talk," she said softly but firmly. "About today. About you." Ethan crossed his arms, his gray-blue eyes cautious. "I already told you everything. What more do you want?" Olivia took a breath, stepping closer. "I want to understand you, Ethan. Not Ethan Reed, the heir. Ethan Carter, the man who chose to be here. The man who helped me today, even when he didn't want to." Ethan turned away, gripping the towel in his hands. "You don't understand, Olivia. I helped you because you needed me. But I don't want to return to that world of contracts, negotiations, power. That world took Nathan from me. And I'm afraid it'll take me too." Olivia touched his arm gently but with resolve. "I don't want you to go back to that world either. I want you to be yourself. And I want to be near you." The air between them stilled. Ethan turned, his eyes caught between surprise and longing. "Olivia, you don't know what you're saying. I have nothing to offer you. No money, no fame. I'm just a man trying to survive." She smiled, the most honest smile she had shown in years. "I don't need money or fame, Ethan. I have more than enough. I need is someone who makes me feel real like you did today." Ethan looked at her, his gaze softening. "Do you mean that?" She nodded, stepping even closer, just a breath away. "I do. But I need you to know something. I'm not perfect. I grew up in Harlem in a cramped apartment with a mother who cleaned buildings for a living. I used the money to hide my fear of rejection, to control everything. But with you, I don't want control. I want to try even if I'm scared." Ethan stayed silent, his eyes scanning her face like he was searching for truth. Then he touched her hand, warm but trembling. "Olivia, I'm scared too. I'm afraid that if I let you in, I'll drag you into my world, a world full of pain. I'm worried I'll become the man I once hated." She took his hand in both of hers, her voice unsteady but strong. "Then let's be scared together. But I'm not running." "Are you?" Ethan looked at her for a long time, then smiled. A genuine smile that lit up his entire face. "I don't want to run anymore." He pulled her into his arms, and in that moment they embraced, not as two strangers, but as two souls who had finally found one another despite the scars. Olivia rested her head on his shoulder, feeling his breath in her hair. For the first time in years, she felt no need to control or win, only to exist. In the spa's quiet, they stood there, the streetlight casting soft shadows through the glass. Olivia looked up, meeting Ethan's eyes. "Today, I saw a part of you in the boardroom, the heir to Reed Global. But I like Ethan Carter more, the man who heals with his hands." Ethan smiled, brushing her cheek. "And I like Olivia Bennett. Not the CEO, but the woman who admits she's afraid." She laughed, feeling lighter than she had in years. "So what now?" Ethan tilted his head, his eyes gleaming. "We start with dinner. Not a fancy restaurant. A sandwich shop in Harlem like the ones you used to eat at as a kid." Olivia burst out laughing, the sound echoing through the spa. "All right, but I'm warning you, I'm very picky with my sandwiches." Ethan took her hand, leading her toward the door. "Then I'll change your mind." As they stepped outside, the October wind swept past them. But Olivia didn't feel the cold. She looked at Ethan, saw him smiling beneath the streetlight, and knew this wasn't just a deal or a fleeting encounter. This was the beginning of something real, something money couldn't buy and power couldn't control. But deep down, she also knew Ethan's world, his past, his secrets. The looming shadow of Reed Global would not leave them in peace, and she was ready to face it, as long as he was by her side. Drizzle fell softly on the streets of Harlem, making the streetlights blur like glowing dots in an ink-wash painting. Olivia Bennett sat in a small sandwich shop facing Ethan Carter, under the warm light of an old hanging lamp. The grilled cheese sandwich in front of her was untouched, but she wasn't hungry. She was smiling, listening to Ethan talk about the first time he tried to make sandwiches at Moonlight Spa, and ended up burning the whole kitchen, forcing Uncle Samuel Reed to clean up all day. Their laughter rang out, overpowering the sound of the rain outside, and for the first time in years, Olivia felt like she didn't have to be a CEO just herself. But that peaceful moment didn't last. Olivia's phone vibrated, displaying the name Mia. She apologized to Ethan, stood up, and walked to the corner of the shop to take the call. "Mia, what's so urgent that you're calling me right now?" Her voice was sharp but low, not wanting to disrupt the atmosphere with Ethan. "Mia," her voice trembling, replied Ms. Bennett. "We have a serious problem. Bennett Enterprises' system has just been hacked. Customer data, contracts, financials, everything has been leaked. The Japanese investors called. They wanted to cancel the deal. And there are rumors online that the company is going bankrupt." Olivia felt the blood drain from her face. She gripped the phone tightly, her voice hardening. "How did this happen? Where's our IT team?" Mia hesitated. "They're investigating, but this doesn't look like a standard system error. It is a targeted attack. You need to return to the office immediately." Olivia looked through the glass at Ethan, who was sipping coffee with a calm expression. She took a deep breath. "I'll be there in 30 minutes. Call the lawyers and the PR team. No comments to the press until I arrive." She hung up, her heart pounding. Back at the table, Olivia forced a faint smile. "Ethan, I have to go. There's an emergency at the company." Ethan stood up, his gray-blue eyes filled with concern. "Is it serious?" Olivia nodded, not wanting to hide the truth. "My system's been hacked. Data has leaked and investors are panicking. I need to handle this now." Ethan touched her hand, his voice low. "Is there anything I can do to help?" Olivia shook her head, but her eyes lingered on his hand, feeling his warmth. "No, but thank you. This dinner, it was exactly what I needed." Ethan gave a faint smile. "Promise me you'll be okay." "All right." Olivia nodded, then rushed to her car, the rain soaking through her blazer. At the Bennett Enterprises office, chaos reigned. Mia ran up holding an iPad full of figures. "Ms. Bennett, we've lost 30% of our stock value in just 2 hours. Major clients are calling and demanding to cancel contracts. And someone's here to see you. He says his name is Richard Reed." Olivia froze, her heart pounding. Richard Reed, Ethan's father, the man who pushed Nathan to his death and drove Ethan away. She turned around and saw an older man standing in the corner of the conference room, wearing a black suit, his salt and pepper hair neatly combed, his eyes cold as steel. "Ms. Bennett," he said, his voice deep but sharp. "We need to talk." Olivia signaled Mia to leave, then stepped into the conference room and closed the door. "Mr. Reed," she said, voice calm but wary. "I don't know what you want, but this isn't the time to play power games." Richard smiled, but there was no warmth in it. "I'm not playing games, Ms. Bennett. I'm here to make an offer. Sell Bennett Enterprises to Reed Global. I'll pay above market value, enough for you to start over without debt." Olivia let out a bitter laugh. "Sell my company? Do you think I'm stupid enough not to see this as a trap?" Richard sat down, his eyes locked on hers. "You're smart, Ms. Bennett. That's why I'm here. Your system's been attacked, Your investors are fleeing, and your reputation collapses. You're out of options. But I can save you on one condition. Olivia crossed her arms, eyes sharp. What condition? Richard leaned forward, lowering his voice. You stay away from my son, Ethan. He doesn't belong in your world, and I want him back at Reed Global where he belongs. Olivia felt her face flush with anger. Can you use money to force me away from Ethan? You don't know who I am. Richard chuckled softly, pulled a file from his briefcase and pushed it toward her. I know exactly who you are, Ms. Bennett. A girl from Harlem who clawed her way up with grit and ambition. But you don't know who I am. These documents contain evidence of shady transactions within Bennett Enterprises. If they're leaked, you won't just lose your company, you might end up in prison. Olivia opened the file, skimming through forged numbers and fake signatures. She knew they weren't real, but they were crafted too perfectly. She looked up, eyes blazing. You're behind the hack, aren't you? You did all this to corner me to pressure Ethan. Richard shrugged, not denying it. I do what I must to protect my family. Ethan is my only heir now, after Nathan's death. He can't waste his life in some rundown spa. Olivia gripped the file tightly, her voice trembling with fury. You killed Nathan, not with your hands, but with pressure, with your ambition. And now you want to do the same to Ethan. Richard stood, his gaze icy. You have 48 hours to decide, Ms. Bennett. Sell the company, leave Ethan, and protect your name, or lose everything. The choice is yours. He left Olivia with the file and a storm brewing in her chest. She sat down, her hands shaking. She recalled Ethan's words about Nathan and how he feared returning to the world of Reed Global. She knew Richard Reed wasn't just a businessman. He was a man willing to destroy everything to get what he wanted. But she also knew she couldn't surrender. Not. This is not for the company, but for Ethan, who made her feel real and wished to live differently. She picked up her phone and called Mia. Find Samuel Reed, owner of Moonlight Spa. I need to see him immediately. And prep the legal team. We're going to fight. Mia hesitated. Ms. Bennett going up against Reed Global. It's dangerous. Olivia took a deep breath, her eyes resolute. I know, but I'm not running. Not ever. She hung up and looked out the window. The rain was still falling. She thought of Ethan, his smile in the sandwich shop, and knew she would do anything to protect him, whatever the cost. Rain continued to fall steadily on the streets of Manhattan, blurring the lights of the towering skyscrapers. Olivia Bennett sat in her office on the 52nd floor of Bennett Enterprises, her eyes fixed on the forged documents left behind by Richard Reed, Ethan Carter's father. The numbers and signatures felt like sharp blades, threatening to destroy her company and the fragile trust she had just built with Ethan. The confrontation with Richard last night still haunted her. His cold eyes, his threats to force her to sell the company and leave Ethan, and the brutal truth that he was behind the cyber attack that had leaked Bennett Enterprises' data. Olivia clenched her fists, a mixture of rage and fear churning. But she knew she couldn't surrender, not for the company, but for Ethan, the man who had made her believe in a more genuine life. She stood and walked to the window, staring down at the stream of traffic below. She recalled the moment in the Harlem sandwich shop when Ethan smiled and shared stories of his early days at Moonlight Spa. That smile, sincere and warm, was something she wanted to protect. But now she didn't know how. Richard Reed wasn't just a powerful businessman. He was ruthless and willing to destroy everything to force Ethan back to Reed Global. And Olivia knew she was standing on a dangerous edge. Her phone buzzed, pulling her out of thought. A message from Mia, Ms. Bennett. I've contacted Mr. Samuel Reed. He agreed to meet you at the spa in an hour. Olivia nodded to herself, feeling a surge of resolve. Samuel, Ethan's uncle, was the only one who understood him better than anyone. If anyone knew how to protect Ethan from Richard, it was him. She put on her blazer and instructed the driver to take her to Harlem, whether it was raining. When the Bentley pulled up in front of Moonlight Spa, the lights inside flickered through fogged glass. Olivia pushed the door open and stepped in the familiar quiet of the space wrapping around her. Mrs. Grace, the receptionist, was wiping down the front counter. She looked up, concern etched on her face. "Ms. Bennett, Mr. Samuel is waiting for you in the back room. But Ethan isn't here." Olivia frowned, a sense of unease creeping in. "Not here? What do you mean?" "He's scheduled to work tonight." Grace hesitated, her eyes avoiding Olivia's. "He called this morning. He said he needed a few days off. They didn't give a reason." Olivia felt her chest tighten. She quickly went down the hallway to the small room where Samuel Reed was seated at an old wooden table holding a cup of hot tea. He looked up, his salt and pepper gaze filled with thought. "Ms. Bennett?" he said, his voice deep and heavy. "Please sit. We have much to talk about." Olivia sat down, her hands clasped tightly in her lap. "Mr. Samuel, where is Ethan? I need to see him. Richard Reed is threatening me and my company, and I think he's trying to force Ethan back to Reed Global." Samuel sighed and set his cup down. "I know. Ethan called me this morning. He said he had to leave to protect you." Olivia froze, her voice trembling slightly. "Protect me? What do you mean? Where did he go?" Samuel looked at her, his eyes filled with worry. "Ms. Bennett, Richard has found Ethan. I don't know how, but he knows Ethan in Harlem works. Ethan feared that if he stayed, Richard would use you to pressure him, just like he did with Nathan." Olivia covered her mouth, her eyes blurring. "Like with Nathan? What did he do to Nathan?" Samuel leaned forward, his voice low but resolute. "Nathan didn't just take his life because of family pressure. Richard wanted him to marry a business partner's daughter to seal a major deal. When Nathan refused, Richard threatened to cut him off and expose his mistakes in the company. Nathan felt suffocated, trapped. Ethan knows this and fears Richard will do the same to you." Olivia stood pacing the room, her hands trembling. "So, Ethan just left, without saying anything to me. Does he think I can't protect myself?" Samuel shook his head, his expression sorrowful. "No, Ms. Bennett. Ethan believes you're strong. But he didn't want you to fight Richard because of him. He left something for you." He reached into his pocket and pulled out a small envelope, her name written in Ethan's familiar slanted handwriting. Olivia opened the envelope, her hands shaking. Inside was a single piece of paper with one sentence written, "Believe in the silence, and I will return. Ethan." She read it again and again, feeling both angry and heartbroken. "Believe in the silence. He thinks I'll sit here while my company collapses, while Richard Reed threatens everything." Samuel gently touched her hand. "Ethan doesn't want you to give up. He wants you to be safe. But I know he won't hide forever. He loves you, Ms. Bennett. I've never seen him like this, not since Nathan died." Olivia sat down, clutching the letter tears, clouding her vision. She remembered the betrayals of her past partners, who lied, friends who left when she needed them most. She had sworn never to let anyone hurt her again. But with Ethan, she had opened her heart, and now he had vanished. She looked at Samuel, her voice steady despite the trembling. "Mr. Samuel, I won't let Richard win. I'll protect this company, and I'll find Ethan. Do you know where he went?" Samuel shook his head, his eyes somber. "I don't. Ethan said the fewer people who knew, the safer it would be. But he'll reach out when the time is right." Olivia nodded, wiping her tears, her resolve returning. "Then I'll wait. But I won't sit still. If Richard wants a war, I'll give him one." Samuel gave a soft smile, pride shimmering in his eyes. You truly are remarkable, Ms. Bennett. Ethan chose well. Olivia left the spa and stepped back into the rain. Ethan's letter gripped tightly in her hand. She leaned against the car window, watching the raindrops slide down the glass. She thought of Ethan, his smile, his deep voice, and the pain he carried from Nathan's death. She knew he was running not out of cowardice, but out of a desire to protect her. But she also knew she couldn't let him fight alone. She would find him, even if it meant facing Richard Reed and all of Reed Global, because Ethan wasn't just someone she loved. He was the reason she wanted to become the best version of herself. A steady afternoon rain cloaked Manhattan in mist, softening the edges of the towering skyscrapers. But inside the conference room on the 52nd floor of Bennett Enterprises, the air was scorching like a furnace. Olivia Bennett stood at the head of the long table, her sharp gaze sweeping across the three board members and legal team, all bearing tense expressions. The data breach orchestrated by Richard Reed had slashed Bennett Enterprises' market value by 70% in just a few days. Investors had pulled out, clients had canceled contracts, and a buyout offer from Reed Global, at a shockingly low price, now sat on the table. But Olivia didn't care about the numbers. She knew this was a trap to force her to let go of Ethan Carter, who had vanished 3 days earlier, leaving behind only a letter that read, "Believe in the silence, and I will return." Olivia clenched her fists, trying to steady her voice. "Ladies and gentlemen, I understand the severity of the situation, but I will not sell Bennett Enterprises, not even a single share. We will fight." Dr. Harper, the lead counsel, sighed. "Ms. Bennett, with all due respect, this is financial suicide. Reed Global has resources far beyond ours. If you refuse, they'll crush the company." Olivia was about to respond when the conference room doors burst, startling everyone. Richard Reed entered clad in a black suit, his salt and pepper hair, slicked back eyes cold as ice. Behind him were two men in dark suits, more like bodyguards than assistants. "Ms. Bennett," Richard said, his voice deep and razor-sharp, "I hope you've considered my offer." Olivia stood tall, her gaze unwavering. "Your offer is a threat, Mr. Reed, and I don't bow to threats." Richard smiled, but it held no warmth. "You're stubborn, but you have no choice. Sell the company, or lose everything: your reputation, your freedom, and my son." Before Olivia could respond, the doors opened again. Ethan Carter stepped inside, dressed in a sleek gray suit, his brown hair neatly combed, his stormy blue-gray eyes burning with resolve. He was no longer the simple massage therapist from Harlem. He was Ethan Reed, heir to Reed Global, and his presence silenced the entire room. Father Ethan said, his voice low but firm, "It's time we had an honest conversation." Richard stiffened, his expression flickering between surprise and fury. "Ethan, I thought you were gone for good." Ethan approached the table and stood beside Olivia, his eyes fixed on his father. "I tried, but I can't let you destroy the lives of the people I love." Olivia looked at Ethan, her heart pounding. He hadn't returned for Reed Global, he'd come back for her. Ethan turned to the board, his voice clear. "Ladies and gentlemen, I am Ethan Reed, heir to 40% of Reed Global, and I'm here to make a different proposal." He pulled a folder from his briefcase and laid it on the table. "I will acquire Bennett Enterprises at 25% above its pre-leak market value, and Olivia Bennett will retain 51% of the shares, maintaining complete control." Richard let out a bitter laugh. "You're insane, Ethan. You don't have the money. You're a massage therapist living in a dump in Harlem." Ethan smiled, unshaken. "You're wrong, Father. My shares in Reed Global were never transferred because you never declared me dead. This morning I filed a New York Supreme Court motion to reinstate full ownership. I have enough capital to buy Bennett Enterprises and 10 companies like it." Olivia stared at Ethan, stunned by his confidence. The board murmured their expressions, shifting from doubt to curiosity. Richard slammed the table, his voice rising in fury. "You have no idea what you're doing, Ethan. Reed Global is yours, but you're throwing it away for a woman who only wants your money." Olivia stepped forward, her eyes blazing. "You're wrong, Mr. Reed. I loved Ethan when I thought he had nothing. I offered him $1 million, then 5, and he refused. He chose to live authentically, something you'll never understand." Ethan took Olivia's hand, pride shimmering in his eyes. "Father, I'm not declaring war. I'm declaring independence. You destroyed Nathan with your ambition. I won't let you do the same to Olivia or me." Richard rose, his eyes darkening. "Do you dare bring up Nathan? He was weak and never fit to be an heir. And neither are you." Ethan stepped closer, his voice low but cutting. "Nathan wasn't weak. He was sensitive like me. The difference is, I found someone who gives me the strength to stand." He turned to Olivia, his gaze softening. "Olivia, you're the reason I'm not running anymore." Then he faced Richard again, his voice stronger than ever. "And Father, I know you orchestrated the data breach. I have proof. If you don't back off, I'll hand it to the FBI." Richard's face paled, though he tried to maintain composure. "Are you threatening me?" Ethan nodded. "This isn't a threat. It's the truth. I already lost Nathan because of you. I won't lose Olivia." Olivia felt her heart tighten. She gripped Ethan's hand, her gaze unwavering. "Mr. Reed, I accept Ethan's offer. I'm selling him 49% of my shares, and together we will rebuild Bennett Enterprises. You've lost." Richard stared at them, his eyes filled with fury, and something else, powerlessness. He turned to leave, but Ethan called out, "Father, one more thing." Ethan pulled a small ring from his pocket, then dropped to one knee before Olivia, his eyes shining. "Olivia Bennett, you taught me that love is worth fighting for. I want to protect you, love you, and build a future together. Will you marry me?" Olivia covered her mouth, tears streaming down her cheeks. She nodded, her voice trembling. "Yes, Ethan. 1,000 times yes." Ethan slipped the ring on her finger, stood, and pulled her into an embrace, unbothered by the stares from the board and Richard. The conference room fell silent, broken only by rain against the windows. Richard stood frozen, his expression between rage and a deep, quiet sadness. "You'll regret this, Ethan," he said in a low voice. "And so will you, Ms. Bennett." Ethan looked at his father, steady and calm. "I don't regret living honestly, Father, but I do hope one day you'll understand." Richard turned and walked out of the room, his bodyguards trailing behind. Olivia held Ethan tightly, her heart pounding. She knew the battle wasn't over, but with Ethan beside her, she was ready to face anything. The Long Island sky glowed with sunset light, casting golden hues over the ocean, shimmering like a carpet of diamonds. On a secluded beach, Olivia Bennett stood barefoot on white sand, her silk wedding dress fluttering gently in the breeze. She hadn't chosen a lavish ceremony with hundreds of guests or the flash of the press. She wanted something tangible, just a moment with Ethan Carter, who had changed her life. Ethan stood opposite her, also barefoot, dressed in a beige linen suit. His blue-gray eyes sparkled with a love and peace Olivia had never seen before. Samuel Reed, Ethan's uncle, stood between them as both best man and officiant, his warm smile softening the coolness of the evening air. The officiant, an older woman with a warm, deep voice, began the ceremony. "Olivia and Ethan, you've chosen to stand here not for status or wealth, but love. If there's anything you wish to say to one another, now is the time." Ethan took Olivia's hands, his eyes never leaving hers. Olivia, you taught me that life isn't about running from the past, but building the future. I promise to use these hands to love and protect you, and this heart to make the world better as you did for me. Tears streamed down Olivia's cheeks, but she smiled, her voice trembling yet strong. Ethan, you showed me that true strength doesn't lie in money or power, but in the courage to live honestly. I promise never to try to repurchase love, because I already have the most genuine love of all yours. They exchanged rings, simple silver bands engraved with each other's names, and when the officiant declared them husband and wife, Ethan pulled Olivia into a long kiss full of passion and promise. Samuel clapped a few close friends scattered rose petals along the sand, and the sound of waves joined in with their laughter. That night under the moonlight, Olivia and Ethan sat on the beach hand in hand. She leaned her head on his shoulder, feeling his warmth. "Did you ever think we'd get here?" she asked softly. Ethan smiled, kissing her hair. "No. I used to think I'd be running forever. But you made me want to stop, to live." Olivia looked up, her eyes shimmering. "And now, what do we do?" Ethan squeezed her hand. "We build something meaningful, not just for us, but for others too." 1 week later, Olivia and Ethan announced the creation of the Bennett Reed Foundation, a charitable organization supporting homeless youth and promoting ethical business practices. They opened their first office in Harlem, near Moonlight Spa, as a tribute to where they first met. With his experience managing the spa, Samuel Reed agreed to serve as an advisor. Olivia saw him smile fully for the first time, as if he had finally rediscovered family after many years. The foundation quickly gained attention, with grants pouring in from former skeptics of Bennett Enterprises, who now believed in Olivia and Ethan's vision. But the biggest surprise came 6 months after the wedding. One morning, while Olivia and Ethan were gardening at their new home in Brooklyn, a delivery truck pulled up at the gate. The delivery man handed them a small maple tree, its roots carefully wrapped, and a card. Olivia opened it and froze at the familiar firm handwriting, for shade and hope. "Richard." She handed the card to Ethan, her expression tense. "Your father, why would he do this?" Ethan read the card, his eyes flickering with surprise and thoughtfulness. "I don't know. Maybe he's trying to say something." He looked at the tree, then at Olivia. "Shall we plant it?" Olivia nodded, and together they dug a hole and placed the tree in it, each shovelful a quiet promise for the future. When they finished, Ethan looked at the tree, his eyes distant. Olivia touched his hand. "What are you thinking about?" Ethan gave a wistful smile. "My father. He used to take Nathan and me camping when we were little. He taught us how to plant trees and said they'd grow with us. Maybe this is his way of saying sorry." Olivia hugged him gently. "If he wants to talk, would you be ready?" Ethan nodded, his eyes lighting up slightly. "Maybe. But not now. Right now, I want to be here with you." A month later, news came from Olivia's legal team. Richard Reed was investigated by the FBI for financial fraud tied to the Bennett Enterprises data leak and other shady Reed global dealings. Olivia asked Ethan if he wanted to intervene, but he shook his head. "He has to face the consequences, Olivia. But I don't want to live out of hatred. I want to live for us." Olivia smiled, pride welling inside her. She knew Ethan wasn't just the man she loved. He was stronger than anyone she'd ever known. Every night before bed, Ethan still gave Olivia a foot massage, not for money, not out of duty, but out of love. Olivia would lie there watching him and realize that true happiness had no price. She remembered their journey from $1 million offer at a spa to a forever promise on the beach, and she knew they would face it together no matter what the future held. The maple tree began to sprout new leaves in the garden, which were young and trembling in the wind. Sometimes Olivia would catch Ethan standing beside it, whispering something, perhaps speaking to his father. She never asked, only smiled, knowing that some love like theirs, or the love of a father trying to make amends, deserve a second chance.